Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Grumman Pilot's YouTube channel. And this is more footage of Glens Falls, New York, 2007. And this footage has been shot by Ken Blackman. Don't know how many parts it's going to be, but we're going to put it all together, and it'll be out there on the channel in a little while. So please enjoy. So we would like to ask you, please subscribe, hit the like button, and hit the notify to stay current with our content.
From now on, but she has a few left for AYA 2007. Carolyn, William, stick up your hand. Okay, should be out in the lobby with a few more of these ornaments for anybody who would like to pick one up. When we were recognizing people before, there was one group that I did forget, and that was, as you probably know, the people running the restaurant, the woman that ran the restaurant at the airport, sort of walked off the job middle of the week before the convention, leaving everybody in the lurch, and the people who took it over were not able to hire enough staff to take care of us. And the AYA being the kind of organization that it is, some of you stepped right up and worked in the restaurant first thing in the morning, waiting on tables. So, will everybody who waited on the table stand up? Well, I called you at 6, Rob. Yeah, and by the way, this group of people not only work hard early in the morning to serve you all breakfast, and you were generous with your tips. Well, they were generous with your tips too, because they contributed them all to the AYA Scholarship Fund. Okay, now the moment that you've all been waiting for. Our special guest speaker this year is someone that you will really appreciate. And that is you are our special guest speaker this year. We now afford you the chance to visit with the people that in many cases you only get to see once a year. So spend the next little while chatting with friends that you won't see again until maybe Burlington, Iowa. Thank you all for coming.
It's a pleasure meeting you. I don't think I'll get to finish.
Doug, I'll tell you, firing. Oh, that's one. Sure. Now, a lot of people are very concerned. They're really good about how badly they get. When you fire them, there's different things going on all at the same time. I have to often people ask me, is the thing cancer? I said, I got two problems. You saw how that, what happens, you fire the thing, you get that flash in the air, and smoke, and then designation later, boom, the thing goes off, and there's that fire and smoke in front of you, and sometimes you can't even recall the smoke that was done. And the only way to actually try to activate one of these guns is to call them. Use the trigger. You don't move. Because it takes, sometimes it's got a minute, it takes a while for everything to happen. But it's good for help. And if you flinch, well, that's a little. No. They weren't looking for accuracy. Now the French looked for more accuracy in their firearms. They had a much smaller wingage, so like a point really smaller. The French guns were accurate. I'll do about 75 yards. The thing is, the English were more interested in that fire. They wanted that 4 shots a minute. And if you use the bigger ball, yeah, you can get a little better accuracy, but it takes longer to reload the gun. Is that much effort? Oh, sure. Yeah, these guns, these really get caked up pretty good this time. Yeah. What did you use to clean the barrel if it did get clogged? Water. I mean, in the midst of battle, did you?
Well, in the midst of battle,
you're toast. You're just bayonet.
you lay on the bayonet if the gun isn't operating. Or simulate it, fake it.
Was that still used in the wars up to the 1840s, 1850s?
Why, sure, a Civil War regiment, the 10th Tennessee, in 1861 turned out with these brown duck muskets. They were still around in the Civil War. He was testifying to me, telling me these old pumpkin slingers. He says somebody can shoot at you all day long with one of them old pumpkin slingers.
We got here the guys telling us how to shoot a musket.
I think he exaggerated. They make too many muskets.
They were loading those on horseback as they were charging.
Well, you'd fire one shot with your carbine or your pistol, and then you go into your sword.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Okay, where you guys at?
Not really, no. It was you had generally a trooper carried a carbine,
Oh, okay.
maybe a pair of pistols, and then he relied on his sword. With a repeating weapon, the Colts, Civil War, just about ended cavalry charges anyway. Didn't matter.
That's good.
One on foot. Yeah. Well, Grenadier, I've read between 3 and 4. I talked with that curate. We put together a couple of parts on the road. And he looked at the tax thing. He said, "How do I tell him I have an account from a fellow that was Grenadier in the early part of the 1870s. His name was Max Bean. He's up against the French fortification. His arm was brought back, the grenade had wet. It went off in his hand. He said it killed several people about him, propelled him over a fence. He said he was flayed like an old dead horse, and his fellow grenadiers had to roll him in the water to put up the flame. They burst into about 6 to 8 yards.
How many bullets were fighting like yourself?
A full combat load I've read for this time would be 70 rounds. Well, that's no long there. Like the musket, I'm sure you'll love it again.
Now, one of the things I did for years for home defense, I lived in a bad neighborhood, I took
A lot of beats.
I put a load and a half of powder in it.
Also, when we were kids, we used to have bottle rockets. We would throw them in the water like we did. Throw them in the water. But what we do is we get these little flashlights.
The Duke of Cumberland is supposed to have remarked that a battle without cannon is like a dance without music. Well, you've been to the dance, now it's time to face the music. Now the gun, we're going to fire. This, you would have wanted a pair of these. 1757, if you were marching down one of these wilderness roads. The reason being, the Indians were deathly afraid of it. The noise of the gun. They thought the god of thunder lived inside that gun barrel. Now this particular gun is a battalion or field gun, ordinarily used with the marching army outside the walls of the fort. This gun is a 4-pounder. Called that because it fires a solid iron cannonball, weighing 4 pounds, propelled by 1.25 pounds of gunpowder, all wrapped up in a neat flannel package like the musket cartridge I showed you. Again, these are for speed and loading. Now the cannon, loaded just like the musket.
the entire package, stuffed down the muzzle of the gun with the cannonball facing out. And like the one getting fired here in a small hole, called a touch hole because you touch it with burning rope. Maximum range of one of these guns, depending on the elevation of the gun barrel and the powder charge. 12 to 1,400 yards. Effectively. Oh, well, we can hit a target, see the size of that tavern every time. You can see the yellow letters on the roof, the tiki, 400 yards and less. So we're not going to shoot at the tavern today, because those boys and girls are going to be bombed anyway before the after. And for a British soldier to shoot at a tavern is like you and I shooting at a church. Now these cannonballs, they can be very effective against columns of marching soldiers. Some of these columns can be 18 men wide, 60 men deep. It is on record, one of these cannonballs plowing through a column of men, killing 46 people. These cannonballs were also very effective against the wood walls of a fortification like this. Now these walls would have been filled with earth. During the final days of the attack, the enemy, rather than aim at the gun port, attempted to flip the gun over and kill the gun crew, would aim at the foot, or the bottom of the wall, loosening the timbers, so the top portion of the wall. Left unsupported would collapse. That earth would fill between these two wooden walls, would flow out from that opening in the front of the wall, creating a rapid rubble of dirt, by which our fierce grenadiers with fixed bayonets would charge into the fortification. We'll now begin the actual loading and firing of the gun. Ordinarily 8 men would be serving this gun, but in the grand old tradition of the British Army, we found one well-qualified man to do the work of 8 for the pay of 1. Well, didn't you read the fine print on your enlistment contract, Donnie?
No.
It makes it so much easier for us recruiting sergeants when they can't read. The text is warm, a corkscrew-like device at the end of a wooden staff. Runs it down the gun barrel, looking brain to brain from the previous shot. Because he doesn't want this touch hole blocked up, making this gun unshootable. He now takes the swab or sponge, all the bigger powder shot to fire that round along the horizon. And that would oftentimes cause the shell to burst. Whereas the mortar, you can get away with a teacup full of gunpowder, just up, and gravity takes over from there. Other questions?
Yeah, the mortars have burning fuses or impacted.
Burning fuses. Sometimes they burst when they come out of the gun barrel. The fuse, it's a wooden cylinder filled with gunpowder. There's radiation on markings. The gunner would take a brass knife and cut it at that line where he wanted it to burst in air. Notice I said brass, not iron or steel.
What was the complement of cannon?
Well, altogether there were 17 guns. Some other accounts say 21. The two biggest were 32 pounders. There were many 12 pounders. There were a few 9 pounders, and there was a couple of 6 pounders. The big guns all blew up.
Was the fort ever attacked from the water? Did anybody approach from the water?
Yeah, that winter attack of 1757. The French came down on the ice. But it was so cold, they just had to stop up there, about 3 miles up the lake and build fires to warm up, and people here in the fort could see it. They were expecting to catch the 44th Regiment, an Irish regiment, I guess, celebrating St. Paddy's Day, March 17th. Well, Major Arrow ordered the rum locked up, and you heard of the Fighting Irish. They were fighting that day when the French finally showed up. That's swell. Any other guys? This is a Spanish gun. This was found in the ocean on a ship that sank between 1720 and 1730. So this gun is older than the actual fort. This gun is still loaded. We didn't know it ourselves. Student archaeologists come here a few years ago, and got all the coffee cups and soda cans out of there. I took a wooden staff, tried to push it all the way, we go all the way back. So we got a flashlight shining down there, there's a cannonball in there. There's a cannonball, it's probably powder. Are there other questions? Well, if you'd like to see how a musket ball is made, please come along with me. Myself to a sip of Oh Be Joyful. The British soldier was allowed 4 ounces of rum a day, but he couldn't get it neat or straight. It had to be mixed to 4 parts water, for fear if they got it straight, they'd save it up in these canteens and go on a toot some night and kill all these officers. Now, because I carried land pattern musket 75 caliber, I, as a redcoat, ordinarily would not have been required to manufacture my own bullets. They would have been mass-produced for me at places called laboratories. However, many Americans served here at Fort William Henry. Actually, it was Americans who provided most of the soldiers for the defense of this place. And many of these Americans brought their own guns from home. Now, these guns would shoot bullets of different size and caliber, so when our American purchased his gun from the local gun maker, this was part of the package. It's a mold. Looks like a nutcracker. Break it open. 2 halves of a cup. Close it up. There's an opening in the top called a screw hole. Pour your melted lead in there, you pop it open, and you have a musket ball. Now, did any of us happen to catch that movie, The Patriot, with Mel Gibson? Yep. He's an overrated actor, don't you think? Lee Marvin. Now, that was a guy with real. Yeah. Well, real folks didn't watch the movie. Remember? Melt down those little lead soldiers in a kettle just like this one over that cook fire, putting the liquid lead into the mold, make a musket ball. Roundabout way me says, it doesn't take a blast furnace to melt lead. It melts between 600 and 700 degrees, so the soldiers did melt lead over their cook fires. How to use their cook pots is not a real good idea. But back then, they were more concerned about fast lead poisoning than they were slow lead poisoning. Now, I'm going to take my dipper here, stir up this lead pot behind these concrete blocks, so you won't see the electric stove I have here to melt the lead with. Spill a little bit of the lead onto the table, show you what it looks like coming out. Now, no magic. The mold is empty. Let's see if I can't make a musket ball as good as Mel Gibson's stuntman. Okay? That's what a brand new musket ball looks like. Bright, shiny, silvery color. Looks like something a Lone Ranger might use. I know we all remember calling card, the silver bullet, but in time as it oxidizes with the air, it'll turn a dull lead gray. Now the bullet's kind of hot yet, so I'm going to tap it in this pail of water, cool it off. Now I still got this sprue tail where I poured the lead in, so I'm going to take my 18th century Walmart scissors here and cut that tail off. Well, that's how Sam Walton got started, you know, going from fort to fort with a mule and a stack of these Chinese scissors. Yeah. And there you go. And the bullet's round. Well, I got a knack for pointing out the obvious, don't I? The bullet's round. The modern ammunition is called rounds. The real ones are called rounds. One time ammunition was round. U.S. Army. Pointed ammunition is called ball ammunition. Those supposed dates from the time when military ammunition was ball ammunition. Now, lead is a relatively soft material. I can make a mark in it with my thumbnail. As a result, when it hits something hard like bone, it splatters. It was thought in the 18th century, wound to the chest cavity ordinarily fatal. Wound to the arm and leg would result in amputation. Modern surgeons have looked at these bullets, and knowing the damage they do at short range, they have said the only answer they would have for a wound to the arm or leg would be amputation. Now, the numbers have been done, and it's thought the death rate on a battlefield of the 18th century was 2%. However, once a wounded soldier went to the surgeon's tent, the death rate jumped to 25%. Now, there's many reasons for this: disease, infection, these bullets, but the surgeons themselves bore a large measure of responsibility. Many of these people are quacks, drunks, failed men, and broken men who owed their appointment to the colonel of the regiment who pocketed part of their pay. Now, let's take our hypothetical wounded soldier. Say, well, he's wounded below the knee. Brought to the surgeon's tent, filled up with as much rum as he could drink, told to bite the bullet, and 4 or 5 husky men would hold him down while our surgeon took out his rusty bone saw. Now, a surgeon accounted himself a capable man if he could saw off a leg in 3 minutes' time or less. This happened more than once. Our poor unfortunate has his leg sawed off. One of the men holding him down right there pulls his hand away after the operation. Notices a couple of his fingers were sawn off. Happened so quick he wasn't aware of it until he pulled his hand away. Now, if our unfortunate soldier survived the shock of this operation, he still had to contend with gangrene, blood poisoning, peritonitis, and of course, loss of blood. No, I'm not saying this for shock history, but to point out nostalgia has been called the past without the pain. Well, there was a lot of pain here at Fort William Henry in 1757. A lot of young people, and they're the ones that fight the wars, gave up their futures for an American future. And it's fair to ask.
Our next register will begin momentarily of the audiovisual room. Please make your way across the courtyard to join the tour. The tour will consist of a lecture fire, cannon fire, and lecture following demonstration. And kids, join the environment. Thank you and enjoy your tour.
Yes, it is fair to ask. What was this fight of 1757 all about? This was a fight for the best thing of all. A little piece of land, a place you could call home. This was a fight for the American West. And in 1757, the American West began at the west wall of Fort William Henry. France was building a chain of fortifications that stretched from New Orleans to Montreal to sail the American colonies against the Atlantic Ocean. If France had been successful in this struggle, there would not have been an American Revolution 20 years later. And American independence, well, if it ever did come, we don't know what shape or form that America would have taken. But it may not have been the America that saved the world in 1918 and 1945. Now, there's several undiscovered graves of these people about us. A few years ago, the power company digging out here on the main street discovered what was left of one poor soul. They buried him in a white children's casket. All we know about him is he was a very young man. He rests in our cemetery now. His headstone says John Doe, and we consider his grave no different than the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery, known only to God. Well, folks, that concludes this tour. I doff my cap to you, and thank you for your kind attention on this very warm night. Well, please feel free to walk about and see what we got here. There's a lot to see, and walk on through any door, walk up on the walls. I'll be here for a few minutes if anybody just wants to chat.
Okay, here's our ride to dinner.
You got my ticket?
Our ride and dinner. Right there. We had her on deck. And we will get loaded on this sucker momentarily.
Hello.
He's got the man here coming along.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this blast from the past back to 2007, Glens Falls, New York, shot by Ken Blackman. There'll be several parts of this, and we'll put them all out there for you. So we hope you found this all useful and informative. Thanks for watching, and have a great day flying your Grumman. Freckles, our cat supervisor, and we'd like to introduce the new cats to you. We have Hopscotch there on the left. The other small ginger is Tarzan. He came with that name, and his sister will be popping up in just a second, and her name is Sweet Pea. These are the new cats that we've adopted into our home. It's going to be a nice little family, and we're having a ball. Thanks for watching.